Now for night court, you are the jury at home. We've got two cases for you tonight. A Nevada church going straight to the U.S. Supreme Court tonight, arguing the state's Democratic governor, Steve Sisolak, is applying one standard for Vegas casinos and another for houses of worship when it comes to COVID-19 restrictions. So let's bring in tonight's Legal Eagles. We've got a treat for you. Civil rights attorney Robert Patillo and criminal defense attorney Bob Bianchi. Good to have you both with us.
Good to be back,
Thanks, Shannon.
Okay, so let's start here. The New York Times talking about this on July 8th. They say, this is our Exhibit A. Churches were eager to reopen, and now they are a major source of coronavirus cases. More than 650 coronavirus cases have been linked to nearly 40 churches and religious events across the U.S. since the beginning of the pandemic, with many of them erupting over the last month as Americans resume their pre-pandemic activities. That's according to a New York Times database. So, Bob, why should churches get to resume services as usual?
Well, I don't know about those stats, Shannon. I mean, bars are a problem and casinos are a problem. Let's look at what they said here. They're only allowed 50 people in a 200-person church. But the other places like movie theaters, bowling alleys, amusement parks, casinos, restaurants, bars, gyms, arcades, water parks, and swimming pools are allowed up to 50% capacity. This church that's suing has up to 200 people. They're only allowed 50 people there. This is a First Amendment constitutional right, and they have a right to assemble, and they have a right to express their religion, and there has to be a rational relationship before the government can take those rights away. And I don't think that the government is able to defend that under these circumstances. These churches should be allowed to worship with the same rules that a casino can operate under.
Okay, that takes us to Exhibit B, and this is the Calvary Chapel, Dayton Valley, their emergency filing with the Supreme Court this week. They said this: the Free Exercise Clause protects the exercise of religion. No constitutional provision protects the right to gamble at casinos, eat at restaurants, or frolic at indoor amusement parks. Robert, I think we'd all agree that's not outlined in the First Amendment.
Yes, that's not outlined in the First Amendment, but I can't understand why we're still having this argument this many months into this pandemic. There are over 130,000 people dead, over 3 million people infected. We've had multiple pastors, reverends, and clergy members die of COVID-19 over the last several months. And so it's completely irresponsible of these congregations to try to force people and pack them back into church. Because remember, a church is not a building. A church is wherever the Spirit of God is assembled. So it doesn't matter if we're doing it over Skype or Zoom or a conference call, we are still assembling in church. The only reason you're trying to pull these people back into the actual building is because you want more money in the collection plate. So I don't think we need to be sacrificing the lives of our congregants because we want them in the building.
You know what? Listen,
I don't think we can say that that's the only reason pastors want to come back, because I got to tell you, as a congregant, I want to go back too, and I've been able to do tithing through texting and online. So there are other ways to make sure you get to the
some Catholics would prefer to get the Eucharist too, as well. Yeah.
Okay, yes, that is true. And by the way, one of the churches I have attended one church service in person since this whole thing started, and they said you can bring your own, if you would like to, bring your own elements for communion. Okay, and quickly, Shannon, I want to get to this because... Okay, quick.
Yeah, Shannon, I would love to be in Ebenezer Baptist Church this Sunday along with the rest of my congregation, but I understand the risk associated with it.
Okay.
Well, then why isn't that risk applying everywhere else? Sorry.
That's okay. I want to make sure that we hit on the second case very quickly, because there was a ton of looting when the protests erupted in New York and in Manhattan in particular. There's one business owner who is suing. This is what his attorney says. This is Exhibit C.
Basically, the city and state government owes a duty to the individual storefronts to protect them. The lackeys that are politically appointed in the NYPD probably were told to stand down, and basically it's a travesty.
And we're told this could turn into a class action that could be into the hundreds of millions of dollar range. So let me get a comment from you both quickly, Bob, to you, and then Robert.
The word probably is the problem with the lawsuit. And my quick comment is this: the NYPD is always the whipping person when there's an issue. There were 350 police officers that were injured, some seriously injured, as they tried to intervene in those riots. So to suggest that the cops didn't do what they were supposed to do and blame the government is unfortunate in my mind. And I say this lawsuit goes nowhere.
Okay, let me get us to Exhibit D, and then Robert, let you respond to this from the New York Post. The headline, Cuomo blames Rikers Island releases anti-NYPD sentiment for NYC crime spike. It says the release of inmates from Rikers Island jails during the coronavirus crisis, failure of district attorneys to enforce the law, and steady flow of anti-police brutality protests have all fed into a spike in violent crimes in New York City, Governor Andrew Cuomo said on Wednesday. Robert, he's going to point to a lot of other things than his own decisions.
Yeah, that's a ridiculous argument. I think something like 98% of people released from Rikers have not reoffended during that period of time. The government has a responsibility to protect business owners, and the fact that they abrogated that responsibility cannot be blamed on any of these external forces. I think this lawsuit, if they do gather more information showing that police were told to stand down, I do think you get standing. I do think you end up with a class action suit. But that if is the most important part.
All right. We're going to leave it there. Robert and Bob, thank you both for being with us. You at home or the jury, let us know what you think. #NightCourts. Most watched.